Welcome back. In this video, we're going to cover sketch modify tools. And so to get started with these, just kind of a little bit of an overview first. Some of these I prefer not to use. Some of them I do. I use offset quite a bit, trim and extend. Very rarely, if ever, do I use scale, stretch, rotate, even copy. Sometimes I'll move things, especially if I misplace a circle. So let's start with our circle here. Let's say, for example, and I know that I want this circle to be on my center point. I'm going to project my planes so I can get a better idea of where I'm at. And now I go to move, and a little dialog box comes up, and it says, select the geometry that I want to move. So I pick my circle. I can come over here and click the select box for my base point. Base point is where I'm moving from. So I'm moving from the center of the circle to the origin, and notice how it kind of clicks in there. So then I can hit done, and now my circle will not move because it auto created a coincident constraint. And we'll get into constraints later on, but basically it means that the center point of the circle and the center point of my sketch of my part have to be in the same place. So now I can change my size if I want to, and I am good to go there. Okay, so copy creates a copy, and it looks the exact same. I want to copy this circle. I want to copy it from here over to, let's say, here. Now I can constrain that with a dimension, and let's just go ahead and put a dimension on this real quick. Let's go 2.25. Rotate basically will allow me to rotate geometry, change its angle. So my center point where I want to rotate from, let's make that here. Now it says geometry being edited is constrained to other geometry, and that constraint is a horizontal constraint. When I drew this line, I drew it horizontally, and so it says, do I want to remove this constraint? This is why I don't like this method of doing things. Sometimes when you remove constraints, it works or it doesn't work. It'll give you an error message. In this case, though, I can type in my angle. If you notice when I type in my angle dialog over here, it changes, and I hit enter. Now notice no dimension was created. So if I want to maintain that angle, I'm going to have to put an angle dimension between two references. This is the way I prefer to do it, but that's there if you'd like. Trim. Trim is one of the big ones that I use it a lot. So let's say we want to get rid of these two arc segments where my circles overlap, excuse me. So I'm going to say trim, and then basically you pick what you want to get rid of. I'm going to get rid of this, and notice it's using my projected geometry as a cutting edge. I want to get rid of this, and now I've got kind of this figure 8 shape, and I can extrude this or do whatever I want with it now. The split tool basically allows us to split a curve. So if you look at the example, I've already got this set up. I can say this is my curve, and it's going to auto split based off of the two lines that it found. Now if I want to do the same thing, but over here, let's say, I can split, and it's going to automatically pick the ends of that horizontal line that I drew. And I would use this in case I didn't want to extend. I'm sorry, I didn't want to trim. I wanted to keep my geometry. Extend works the same way. So if I have a line, let's say it goes from here to here, I can now extend this line to the circle. So it's kind of like the opposite of trim. We'll go ahead and get rid of that. Scale. Scale's a big one. I prefer not to scale things. When you have a lot of dimensions, it just gives the possibility for a lot of error. but it is there. So if we wanted to, let's say, take this rectangle that I'm going to draw, and I want to scale this by a factor of 2, my base point being the center or a corner. See, I can see the preview of how much larger it's going to be. So I want to make this, say, I don't know, 4. And now it's 4 times the size. And I have a new rectangle that's larger. I prefer to control those with dimensions, personal preference. If you're on a job and that's your company's policy, by all means, know that it's there. It's just not one of the ones that I use frequently. Stretch. Stretch I very, very rarely use, if ever. But we can stretch this geometry. Let's say we pick these 2 lines, and my base point is going to be the corner. Now I'm going to get an error that's going to come up. It's going to say it's already constrained to other geometry because this is a symmetric rectangle. If I say yes, I want to remove it, I can now remove those points. These lines that marked my symmetry are kind of pointless, and now I can control the location of this point, let's say relative to these 2 lines, and I can make that now a little more controlled. If we were to put in a straight 2-point rectangle without the symmetry constraint, repeat our stretch and move it, it's still constrained because it is a rectangle, and so it says that these 2 points have to be collinear to each other. I can say yes, and I have the same result. Okay, so that's there. And then offset is another one that we use a lot. So let's say that on this example here, we want to take our newly created arc that we created with our split tool and offset this. We're going to say continue, and then I can type in a number. Let's go 1/4 of an inch, and then I can draw a line, let's say from here to here and from here to here. I can then delete this, and then I can use this area as an extrude reference as well as this area, or I can get rid of all of it, and now I've got a different shape. Offset comes in very handy when you're working with, let's say, a slot that you want to control. So what does that mean? Well, let's just go ahead and do this real quick. I'm going to throw in a couple of points. Try to keep this video short. I wanted to cover all these in one video, though. I will put timestamps in the description so that it's easier for you to find specific commands. So let's say that we put in a slot here, and let's go with a straight center to center slot, and we're going to create that and extrude it to a thickness of, let's say, 0.5. And now I know that I want to put another slot in here that is going to be a cut or a boss that sticks up. So let's go ahead and sketch on top, and we'll flip this so that top reads correctly. I'm going to project geometry, my top, and now I get all my outline in yellow. And I offset this. I'm going to click loop select, make sure that that's clicked. If you don't see the entire thing turn green, right click, loop select, make sure that this is checked. Okay, so we're going to say OK, and then offset again. And now I can go outside or I can go inside. So let's go with a distance of 0.15. And now I can finish that. And now this, I can make a cut, let's say 0.25, so it doesn't go all the way through, which means I cannot make this in one sketch. If this went all the way through, I could. Now the nice thing about using that offset command, and this is where we'll get more into the parametric nature of Inventor and how all the rules are applied down the road. But just know that if I come into Extrusion 1, hit my plus sign, and then edit sketch 1, and let's say we make this value 1.5, and then let's lengthen this to 4. Finish sketch. Now watch what happens. My pocket followed the rules that I gave it. What was the rule that I gave it? That was that this dimension here had to be 0.15. So it knew it got longer and it knew that it got wider, but it went ahead and automatically changed that. If I want to change this dimension, I have to come in here and let's make that a little bit thicker. And now there it is. So that's why when you start to think of workflow, and we'll talk a lot more about this later on down the road, it's important to think about how your part needs to behave if you're going to change it. So thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.